Seahawks 360 podcast, a Sports Ethos production. We look at the Seahawks from every angle, every week, and we are back from a long hiatus, thanks to my maternity leave. So happy to be back. So happy to talk Hawks with you. Also happy to have my co-host, Tino. Tell people how you been.
I've been good. This Mariners team's starting to pick up. So between that and the Mariners or the Seahawks' first couple of picks, I'm in a good place. Can't complain. And the Michigan National Championship. But you put all those things together and we're good.
It's been a good spring for you.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah,
good spring for you. I had a baby. I am going on little to no sleep, but that's starting to get better. So all in all, a great time. Wow. And today we are back because I've been on hiatus, but you can't really be a Seahawks fan if you don't even react to the draft. So we are back to react to the draft. We've gone through all 7 rounds. It's sort of our gut check, instant reaction. We really haven't taken a lot of time. The draft is actually still going on at 2:30, but the Seahawks are done for the day. So we're going to react to that, go through each player, give you our analysis, and ultimately grade the whole draft as a whole. So let's get into it. So with the 16th pick of the Seattle Seahawks, selected Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy is an interior defensive lineman who played for Texas. He's a guy who is known for playing with leverage. The downside is he's really undersized. He's undersized. I don't think he's really undersized, but he's undersized for the prototypical, NFL interior D lineman, but he uses that to his advantage. He's really good at taking on double teams. He's really good at anchoring down and really winning the leverage battle is sort of his game. He's very, very agile. He's very quick, more athletic than most interior defensive linemen, which he also uses to his advantage. And he's got a sort of almost best of both worlds, where even though he's undersized, he still has pretty long arms. So he's able to get into offensive linemen in the chest and really do well. And the only real weaknesses every player has weaknesses and improvements. Obviously, he's not the number 1 overall pick, but he could improve. And just his hand precision, I think he might get some hold. If he doesn't change anything, he would probably get some holding calls in the NFL, but I'm not really worried about that. I'm sure the coaching staff can clean that up. Mm-hmm. And of course, just his size, not being the interior size. There are some other weaknesses that he has to his game, but these are the talking points, and these are the things that I feel like are most impactful. And overall, when evaluating the player, the things that I care the most about, the strengths I care most about, and the concerns or areas of weakness that I care most about is pretty much what I'm going to talk about. So that's sort of the player as a whole. Tino, do you have anything to add just kind of on your overall analysis on Byron?
Yeah, so it was clear that Coach MacDonald wanted a true, kind of 3-tech explosive defensive tackle, right? Yep. The disruptor, I always think Warren Sapp when I think about that role, right? Like the cat quick D tackle that can get into the backfield, that can split a double team if need be, the disruptive defensive tackle. It's super clear that Coach Mike wanted that player, right? That's the centerpiece of his defense. Right. And you can see, they're making the strength even stronger by picking him in the first round. That D line is tough, right? When you line up Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, Byron Murphy, Draymond Jones, and then Boye Mafe or Nwosu, right? You've got 5 guys that all 5 are talented. There's no real weakness there. And as long as he can,
depth. Mike Morris and all those got good depth to add.
Jonathan Hankins they signed.
Right. Yeah.
It's
a strong
Cam Young, right? So we know that Coach Mike's defense is predicated on, his philosophy is predicated on having a really strong defensive line. Mm-hmm. We know that. That's been at Michigan. That was in Baltimore. That's part of what he believes in. So to me, this was a home run. And from a value standpoint, I did not expect Byron Murphy to be available at 16.
Right.
And there was one player that they passed on that I would have I think, been as happy with, and that's Troy Fautanu, the Washington offensive lineman, because I think he's an all-pro guard waiting to happen, right? And that also would have filled a huge need for me. They went at it with numbers later on in the draft. We'll talk about it, but to me, this Murphy pick was a home run. I gave it an A+. I think he is a potential all-pro, especially if he's playing side by side with other talented players. Who are they going to double, right? If you double Murphy, then you're going to see Leonard Williams probably win that battle. If you double Leonard Williams, and Jaron Reed and Murphy have an opportunity to get into that backfield. So it's a win-win for me. I thought the value was great. And then we'll talk about this at the end. The fact that they went so heavy in the line of scrimmage is exactly what I wanted to see out of this draft. It's not sexy. It's not fun, right? There's a lot of dudes that were kind of like, okay, who is this? It's a big body. You got to do research, but that's how teams win. You don't win without winning the line of scrimmage. So for me, this was a home run pick. 100%. Yeah. This was his, just one more thing. This was his Justin Madubuike pick, right? Madubuike was the D tackle in Baltimore that had 13 sacks. And he played that 3-tech spot in this defense. I think that's what he envisions for Byron Murphy. And again, I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, 100%. For all the reasons that you named, I gave it an A+. Because of the value. Like, I agree with you. I did not necessarily expect him to be available. So it really was a dream come true. Thanks and shout out to all the teams that went on an offensive run and decided they didn't care about defense. Right. We do. And so thank you so much for doing the Seahawks favor and giving us that value. I'm grateful for that, most certainly. But I think, I didn't get to super deep dive into the draft, just having the baby and everything like I normally would. But I did get to watch film on this guy. And I'm not saying that he is Jalen Carter, but there were certain moves and just certain like reps, right? Or certain, I think, unique characteristics that he had that just, it was small details, but they made all the difference in terms of his ability to win the rep somehow. Just his ability to just, I think, just cut his what is it, cross move that he has. Like, he's got a really elite.
He's got a good swim. He's able to slip, slip through those double teams, and he just causes havoc.
His ability to change direction, I feel like, is a little unique. I did hear something about him having a running back background, and you can see that on tape just from he can quickly, basically fake out the offensive lineman, make him think he's going left, and then he goes right just quickly, and the offensive lineman can do nothing about that, which is why he faced so many double teams on tape, is because one-on-one blocking him, he could just, outmaneuver you. And so you ask the question, who you double block, in a world that's really strange to imagine, they might most often double block Byron Murphy. And I could be wrong, but just his ability to do that is unlike any other defensive lineman. I can just see teams eventually adjusting to deciding that they would rather double team him, which is just incredible for the other guys. Like you said, either way, it's a win-win. So A+, I'll move on. I won't lament it, but I am just super excited about this pick and the tone that it sets for Coach Mike MacDonald more than anything else. I think I saw something about that we haven't drafted a offensive lineman in the first round since like 2004.
D lineman?
Yeah, like interior D lineman. Yeah. So historic, almost the historic move that we witnessed tonight. But the next pick was Christian Haynes. Let's see. I lost what pick he was at.
So he was. I got it right here. Hold on. One more thing about Murphy that I wanted to say is, there were people that were upset because they passed on Dallas Turner, and Dallas Turner was supposed to go 8 to Atlanta supposedly, and Turner ran the sub 4.5 40 edge player, 6'3", super long arms, Alabama, all that. And my comment, because we went back and forth on Twitter about it, my comment, you saw this, was, or I think I commented to you, was that it's quicker to get to the quarterback as a D tackle than it is from the outside, right? Yep. And so a lot of today, like the value of a Chris Jones in Kansas City and his ability to get to the quarterback and disrupt the whole offense up the middle, or the value of a Derek Brown in Carolina, right? It's Aaron, you saw what Aaron Donald could do. And I'm not calling him Aaron Donald, but the reality is a D tackle that can get into the backfield quickly and immediately, right? You can completely bust up anything that the offense has going. And so to me, and then if you look at Baltimore's defense was predicated on that strength up the middle. We don't talk about outside rushers in Baltimore. You talk about those 2 inside linebackers, the secondary, and the strength and the stoutness of the D tackles, right? And so you just it was super, in my opinion, super easy to just follow the history of Coach Mike MacDonald to understand what it was that they were going to prioritize in this draft and moving forward.
Right.
So Christian Haynes was number 81 overall, 17th pick in the 3rd round. As you said, 6'3", 317, offensive guard out of UConn. He has a wrestling background, tough dude, strong dude, athletic dude. A lot of folks said he shouldn't have made it this far into the 3rd round. He was a huge value, I think, for the Seahawks here. What is your impression of Christian Haynes?
Right. Yeah. Very. I think I love his mobility and versatility. He seems like he is good to at least a minimum of solid, but it seems like he is good at both pass pro and run pro, pass protection and running game. He really just seems like he is a physical guy. Like, physicality is a name of his game, and Mike MacDonald made a comment to that point. He said that that's what he is looking for in his players, and he was really hyped about this particular pick because he can move guys off the ball. And I like that he can not only move guys off the ball, but that he can get to the second level relatively quickly. A lot of times you have to kind of pick your poison, one or the other. A lot of your bigger ball mover, people mover guys aren't really able to quickly get to the second level. For example, a Damian Lewis, like we saw him be really good at least when he was at right guard, moving guys off the ball. And he still was pretty good at left guard, but especially at right guard. But his ability when he was more of a left guard and was asked to do more pulling, more move type of things, wasn't his strength. He was able to manage it, but I think really he is slated to be a right guard. I kind of hope we keep him there. I really don't want to do the Damian Lewis thing all over again. Now, I will say if they did do that, I have more confidence in Haynes' ability to be able to transition that over because of his agility, because of his movement. Damian Lewis was not a mover, and you have that mobility that you need in today's offensive lineman, especially in this scheme. But I think in general, in today's offensive line, you need that. He can provide that. So if they switched him over, I anticipate that you're going to get a much higher level, well, maybe not much higher level, but a higher level of play than you got from Damian Lewis, which was pretty good at times. So I think that could be, either way, I think you have a quality starter who can push, whether that's competing with Anthony Bradford or whether that's just, taking over, what's his name, Tomlinson.
Yeah, Lincoln Tomlinson.
Yeah, Lincoln Thompson, just replacing him up as a starter outright. Either way, I'm super confident about this guy's ability and really excited we got him where we did.
I assume Bradford starts at right tackle or right guard, and Tomlinson at left guard, and then eventually Haynes takes over for Tomlinson, whether it's this year or the next year. Was that?
I think he beats him in camp.
I would love to see it. I don't know. I don't know enough about Christian Haynes other than the scouting reports and the little film that I've seen, but I always love like that wrestling background, right? They're able to grapple. They're able to use their hands. You know that he's not soft, right? That's going to be all muscle. And they said he's nasty, right? There was a clip of him. I don't know if it's at the Senior Bowl or one of those where he was like basically getting in a fight with the D lineman, and he seems nasty to me, and a tough dude. And to me, this team needs more of that. I think we've got big bodies, but we don't necessarily have that nastiness or that fight that Coach MacDonald wants. The other thing that I found interesting with where they picked him was they passed on Zach Zinter, the guard from Michigan, who was potentially an All-American before he got hurt. And obviously Coach MacDonald has the connection to Michigan, given that he was a D coordinator for a year. And Zinter was coming off of an injury, but I do think that speaks more positively to Christian Haynes. And I think the upside that he has, that they were willing to pass on Zinter, who was a potential first round pick before he got hurt, and pick Haynes. I don't know. This may be the pick that I'm most excited about. I love the Murphy pick, and I think it's a no brainer, but the Haynes pick, if we can actually have an interior offensive line that's not, just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks every year. And we can actually have somebody that we can count on that might be in the Pro Bowl a couple of times or be an above average guard. To me, that's what he looks like. And I'm super excited. I gave this an A, not quite the A+ because I don't think he's as much of a slam dunk as Byron Murphy is at his position, but I'm pumped. I think whether it's out of camp or somewhere during the season, I think he takes over for Tomlinson. And I still like Bradford. I'm still high on him. So you got Bradford as your road grader, 6'5", 332-pound right guard that you're running behind. And Haynes, I think, is versatile and athletic enough that as you said, you can pull him, do all sorts of stuff. So I'm about it. These first two picks had me hyped. Both.
Yeah. I'm 100% in lockstep with you.
Mm-hmm.
I also gave the grade just, A. I didn't do the A+ for the same reason. I think Murphy was a little bit more just a little bit more, like you said, a slam dunk, just a perfect fit. I think Haynes is also a great fit. I think he's a great value. Super excited to what he adds. I don't know if they're going to play him. They mentioned that they might play him at right. So I think there is a question about just from an offensive line perspective, because they've got a ton of guys who, experience-wise are more right guards than left. Somebody's got to switch over.
Right.
Bradford did play a left guard at times, but I prefer they not do that.
He's so big.
Yeah, I really prefer they not do that personally. But anywho, I think if it was a right guard to right guard competition, I think Haynes would blow Bradford out the water. I'm just going to be honest because of his experience level. That's another thing that I really like about the Haynes pick is just the level of experience that he has compared. And I think together they make a good duo. Right, you got your guy who has upside but is still raw, and who's had, plenty of snaps from last year to potentially take a leap and develop. And then you got Haynes, but I think the floor is higher for Haynes.
Yep.
So, and the consistency will probably be there a little bit more for Haynes.
Yep, I agree.
Technique wise. And so if they are both right guards, Haynes wins. But if they do move Haynes to left guard, then I feel pretty good about that too, which speaks to the pick in and of itself. I normally hate that. I normally hate switching offensive linemen to something different.
Right.
But I think
he had 40 starts, started for 4 years at UConn.
Right.
And so if he starts as a freshman and you play all 4 years, you're talking about, you have a ton of it. And I know it's UConn.
51 starts, they said.
That's a ton of reps. That's a ton of reps.
And he's
now
great.
We get to your boy next, the next pick in the fourth, or the first pick of the fourth round.
Before we get there, I want to put one more point about Haynes. Right. His ability to pick up stunts and blitzes. His IQ is off the charts. And I think the Seahawks need someone like that. They really don't have anybody. Maybe Abraham Lucas, maybe. But they really don't have anybody. Even Charles Cross is really great with those. He can sometimes get lost or overwhelmed. Right. So really excited to add that to the line, especially on the interior, knowing that as a random aside point, the Arizona Cardinals and the Rams got better in this draft. They for sure had some real, I think, steals and some real valuable. I'm kind of jealous of some of their drafts. So I think you need that on the interior because the Rams in particular, they too are interested in improving the trenches, and so good stuff there. But like I said, we can move on to the next pick, which was the Seahawks did not have a third rounder, so it was a super long wait, in my opinion, for us to get to the fourth round. So at pick, I had all the picks down here.
I can grab it real quick too.
I had all of them, and then I just lost. I keep losing them. Here we go. Yeah, 118, because I wanted to make sure I got it right because there was a trade down. So Seahawks initially had the first they had pick 102. They traded with Denver. I have no idea why they keep answering the phone for us, but they do.
Right.
We get good value every time. I'm about to be best friends with the Broncos front office because they always do us such favors. So grateful for them.
We're like, do us a solid and hook us up with the pick. Can we get a pick?
Like, I don't know why we talk every year.
Right? Can we get a pick from you? What's up?
But somehow they must feel grateful. I don't know how don't hate us at this point. But anyway, they gave us a fifth rounder. Mm-hmm. We got to move up from being in the seventh round to getting 3 6 rounders. Mm-hmm. And then we still had pick number 118 going down from 102. So there wasn't too dramatic of a drop, especially when you're getting an additional fifth rounder. Mm-hmm. It really filled in all of the gaps, I think, picks wise, so that you didn't have these super long just gaps between picks, which was a big deal, I think. So with pick 118, Seattle Seahawks chose Tyrese Knight. He is an interior linebacker for the University of
Texas at El Paso.
El Paso. Okay. Thank you. I know it's UTAP, but I was trying to figure out what is I just keep seeing UTAP everywhere. I'll let you go first, Tino. I'll let you go.
We kind of had to trust Coach MacDonald, right? And trust the front office and just say to yourself, all right, so I've never heard of the dude. I know they had him in for one of their 30 visits. They clearly valued him in a way that maybe the draftniks and the mocksters and all those folks didn't. But they saw something in him. So 6'1", 233, as you said, inside linebacker, has some explosion, right? Has some athletic tools that I think they can work with, but was not really on many people's radars. And so I think a lot of the reaction was when you don't know who the guy is and you see other bigger names like a Jaden Hicks available, even if it's at a different position, people get upset. But for me, again, first year coach, defense is his thing. Linebackers is the position he's coached the most in his career. I just say, let him do his thing. Let him find his dudes. I may not agree, but you do you, and we'll see what the finished product looks like. I do think that if there was one strong criticism of the Seahawks draft overall, it was not addressing the succession plan at off-ball linebacker, right? So you sign Jerome Baker, and you sign, God, why am I blanking on the other one? The dude from Tyrell Dotson, right? You sign both of those guys. You've got, I think, 1-year contracts on both, I believe, or there's like an option or something on Dotson, but I know it's like probably 1 year each. I would have loved to have seen them prioritize who's their backfill, right? Who's the guys that they're going to have for when they move on to the next team. Maybe they're planning on keeping one of them, but I would have liked to have seen them draft more off-ball linebackers. But again, I don't know enough about Tyrese Knight to really comment as to whether I like the pick or not. This is just a purely, I got to trust Coach MacDonald and move on. How about you?
Yeah. The more I looked into it, the more afraid I get. The more I learn, the more I fear. And at the end of the day, I will admit I am with you, right? Because perhaps Coach MacDonald is to linebackers what Pete Carroll is to cornerbacks. And it really doesn't matter how undeveloped they are or how raw, he can develop them. I hope that's the case, because the more I look into this Tyrese Knight guy, he's the opposite of what I wanted at the linebacker position. And that's really what scares me the most. And I just don't like the value. Value is important. I feel like they have been going with the best player available approach. And I'm just not sure that they did that here. I don't think they reached that linebacker because linebackers were getting low, but I think you could have gotten him later on in the draft. He really is a project. He's not anything consistent. He shows flashes. So you see what they're interested in. His whole profile is about his tackles. He is a tackler. led the FBS in tackles.
Mhm.
He's able to shoot gaps. He's able to defend the run really well. He's really good at closing speed and those sort of things. To me, but he struggles in coverage. He
Mhm.
struggles in coverage badly. Like he's got poor instincts when locating the ball in general. He can easily get lost. He can easily lose his man. He also struggles with
Mhm.
tackling. That's not something I want to see after watching last year's team at
Right.
all. Like I don't want to see anybody whose weakness is tackling.
Right.
Please do not bring any other poor tacklers on this team. I can't take it personally and emotionally. So
Mhm.
the more I learned about the guy, originally I was sort of trying to be open-minded, but I just don't like the profile of the guy because I feel like in the modern NFL, you need guys who can cover or they're going to be attacked. And we've seen that over and over again. I don't know why John Snyder keeps just making the same mistakes over and over again. I don't know how we keep getting here, but he seems like an extremely poor man's Jordan Brooks from a skill perspective. Jordan Brooks was better in coverage than this guy is as a prospect at least, and he most certainly is not as good in the run. So I'm decreasingly down on the pick. At the end of the day, I
Mhm.
will defer. Mike MacDonald, this is his prove it, if this guy doesn't work out, then he loses a little trust with me because I don't think that this was the best use of the pick. And I'm not sure that this is the player that's really gonna take this defense to the next level.
I think we forget sometimes is a fourth rounder, right? And so I want every one of the Seahawks picks to be great. I want every one of the Seahawks picks to fill a need. I want to be excited about all of them. But the reality is that, it's not as imperative that they hit on every one of these picks that we're going to talk about from here as is a hit, right? As much of it is that even Haynes is a hit. So I don't know. I think that a lot of times you give your coach one or two picks for them to really say this is my guy. And I would say that outside of Murphy, this is the one pick where you can say, okay, this is clearly what Coach MacDonald wanted. So I don't know. I think he might actually end up being the most scrutinized pick out of all of them
Yeah,
for his
certainly.
rookie year, which is interesting to say about a fourth rounder.
I'm not
Uh,
sure that I think I value fourth rounders maybe a little bit more than you do. I think after the fifth round is when you really just kind of, I can even hear an argument for fifth, but I think
mhm.
fourth rounder is still a really quality pick in today's NFL. You can get
It
some
can
really
be.
high level players in the fourth round, and I feel they were some high level players on the board that could impact teams today. And so when you pass up those guys for a project in a valuable pick, I
Sure.
would I would relent on fifth round, but fourth round, no, I gotta. I mean, there's still some
I think
value
there
to be
were
had.
there were I think the hard part for specifically for Seahawks fans was that there were names that were talked about as potential Seahawks draft picks that were still available, like Jaden Hicks, like even TJ Tampa, the corner from Iowa State was still there. That was like a Mel Kiper special right there.
Yeah,
Um, Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest, who I think a lot
yeah.
of people mocked to the Seahawks
Went to the
as a safety.
49ers.
Yeah, he was there, went to the Niners. Um, Cade Stover, a tight end everybody knows because he went to Ohio State, was still on the board. He went just after the Seahawks took AJ Barner. So sometimes it's those recognizable names, I think, that people want. And then you see a Tyrese Knight out of UTEP and you're like, who the heck is this dude? Why did we take him instead of the dude that I wanted? But again, I defer to the coaches and to the scouting staff with players that I haven't heard of much. And we'll see what happens with them. When the Hawks took Bobby Wagner in the second round, I didn't really know a whole lot about Bobby Wagner. All I knew was he was super fast for his size and he was super productive at Utah State. And he ends up being a Hall of Famer. So who knows what's going to happen, but we'll see with Tyrese Knight.
Yeah. Well, I will add this. I think to your point, there is a thing about the names. I also think there's a little bit, I would add a little bit of nuance in the sense that there are some times where you're right. They're going to be underrated sleepers that people won't know about, but that would
Mhm.
legitimately be great value picks. I'm not convinced this is him. Just like I said, just based on his strengths and weaknesses, I don't get the sense of like hey, I have no idea who this guy is, but I see the vision, right?
Right.
I don't really see it.
I just don't know enough about him to comment either way. I don't make my way down to El Paso that often. I know they weren't on TV that much. So
I don't have to, man. If I see poor tackler, I'm gonna be in I'm gonna be traumatized. I'll be honest.
Or an inside linebacker batting coverage, because we went over that last year.
Those two things are real red flags for me, man. When I see that, I don't need anything else you show me. It's still gonna be.
You see the Christian McCaffrey, Benjamin, all those guys running across the middle, running away from linebackers. We did nightmares of those guys, man.
Okay.
All right. Can we get to my Michigan guy next?
Yeah, we can get to your Michigan guy next. The Seahawks selected with the 121st pick, tight end AJ Barner. Tino, why don't you do the honors and tell us about the player?
Yeah. So 6'6", 251, inline tight end, right? Like kind of that Cody Parkinson type of role.
No.
He's a better player than Parkinson.
Will Dissly, right? Isn't that more Will Dissly?
Yeah, well, I was thinking so Dissly and Park. So he's a mixture of the two, right? So he is very much a blocker, right? He is very much a blocking tight end. But the thing that he does that I love, obviously I watch every Michigan snap, is he can wall off the defender and use his 6'6" frame to catch the ball. And so I think the underrated portion of his game is how good of a pass catcher he is and how athletic he is. I know he didn't test great, but you would watch him play and you saw like he has a little bit of shake in him, right? And he's not just this big lumbering tight end that you go after his ankles and he falls, right? He's got some moves to him. And so I don't know. I think that this particular role is such an important one on a team that wants to run the ball, and that blocking tight end, right? That tight end that can still be a threat in a play action game. And I think Barner was a huge steal here for me. The other thing about his pass catching ability is he was playing next to Colston Loveland at Michigan, who's might be the best pass catching tight end in college football. And Loveland was McCarthy's favorite target. And so Barner didn't have the type of opportunities to showcase his ability to catch the ball that I think some others might as the first tight end in an offense. So to me, this was the fit of this pick was like at the level of the fit of the Byron Murphy pick. I loved, and the Christian Haynes pick. It made sense. I've seen a lot of them. He's a tough dude. He's a great blocker. He's got great hands. I'm about this pick. I was shocked to see him last this long. To me, this was an A. And then you pair him with Noah Fant, right? Who's that, split the seam 4-5 tight end. To me, it's a great fit. Those two together. And then you got Farrell Brown as well, who they signed. And I just said the tight end room, I think, looks good. I'm super happy with this pick.
Yeah. Actually, I realized that we did not give actual grades on Knight. So what's your letter grade on him?
C.
Yeah, I got a C-. Mm-hmm. All right. But on AJ Barner, I 100% agree with all your points. I think that amongst Seahawks Twitter, there is some debate because there were, like you said, the names, right? Yeah. I think that people say there are better tight ends and maybe they are better just from a playmaking perspective or a pass catcher perspective. But I completely agree with you that it's more than just about what this player does. I mean, he may be underrated as a pass catcher. I think I would say that's a very valid point. But even if he's not, even in the worst case scenario when he's not, they need a balanced tight end room. You already have Noah Fant, who I'm sure is tired of splitting reps with other guys. He was really a 1A, 1B for a long time, and he's not used to that. So I'm pretty sure when they re-signed him, they assured him that he would be the guy. He would be the clear tight end one. And so to draft someone that will be able to compete with him, I think one, probably has a little friction in there in a tight end room. But two, you really do need something more well-rounded. I hear great things about Pharaoh Brown and his ability to block as well. But I think that's a 1-year deal, right? So this is a great value. And I do think he has some playmaking upside, maybe more than people are giving him credit for. It really does remind me more of the Will Dissly thing, where he was known as the best blocking tight end in his class. But when he came out pre-injury, he really surprised people with his ability to make plays. And him and Russell Wilson had a really great connection before he had those unfortunate injuries that sort of derailed the direction of his playmaking skills. I can really see a similar trajectory with AJ Barner, for sure, because I think they will want to utilize tight ends. Maybe not the 3 tight end set. Maybe they do, but I know that Mike MacDonald wants to be versatile, and having a tight end that can, I think really all of these tight ends, you saw Noah Fant get better at blocking. I've heard good things about Pharaoh Brown, and then you got a bona fide blocker dude in AJ Barner, and all these guys can pass catch. You still have almost, it's less name brand, but I think you have a similar skill set as you had last year, where all 3 guys could do all 3 things, and that was an advantage to your offense. I think they've gotten back to that with this pick, which is a big deal.
Right. And I think there's a good point that without Barner in that tight end room, you didn't have balance. You had Fant, who, is more of the pass catcher. You've got Brown, who's known for his blocking. And I think Barner really does kind of split the middle. And I don't know. I think tight ends don't show up until you have horrible ones, right? And so you have a horrible tight end who can't block and get blown by the edge, or you got a horrible tight end that is not a threat in the passing game, and the defense can focus all their attention on the wide receivers, double both sides, whatever it is. Barner is good enough the tight end room is good enough that opposing defenses are going to have to pay attention. And Barner is good enough that you can't ignore him in the passing game. So I don't know. Again, for me, I loved it. I love having Michigan guys on the team that I root for, because I'm already a fan. But I legitimately gave this an A, because I think it was the right pick at the right time, and the right fit for what the tight end room already had.
Yeah. I give it an A-. One, because there is an argument that Cade Stover was on the board, who was a better, maybe all-around value. But again, I do get the best fit, I think, makes a difference more than just value on paper in this instance. I take off just a tad for that. And also I take off just a tad because I really feel like they should have taken a safety. I really do. I love the pick, but I hate where we are with our safety room. And I think that was a great opportunity at that pick in terms of just roster construction. I take off just a tad for that. So it's still an A, but it's an A- for those reasons. It's really minor. But other than that, and that's just I'll admit my personal biases and opinions, but that's what I do here. No, A-.
Right. All right. Who's
next pick was pick number 136, courtesy of the Denver Broncos, our 5th round pick. It was the first pick of the 5th round, I believe. If I'm not, I'm pretty sure. It was the first pick of the 5th round, which is a great value on their part. They decided to go with Nehemiah Pritchett, who was a cornerback out of Auburn. They really seem to like the Auburn guys this year, for sure. We'll talk about that later, but that seems to really be Derek Hall's got to be thrilled with being reunited with all his teammates. I thought it was an interesting move overall. I didn't love going DB here again. Really felt like they needed more help in the safety, but I do understand that Trey Brown is on the last year of his deal, so it's assurance in that way. And also there's a question about whether, how much Spoon's going to play nickel versus outside cornerback. So I think it gives you assurance there. So it does make sense. I follow the logic. It's a guy who's pretty versatile. He's able to do zone and man, key Mike MacDonald move. He's got decent speed, not great speed, but he does have long arms. And so that helps him with pass deflections and things like that. He's got really great speed. And he seems to be able to use that size and speed to his advantage. and with reasonable change of ability. So those are sort of his strengths. He does too struggle with tackling. I think he struggles a little bit less so than Tyrese Knight, but it does seem like that is not as great for him. He's a really lean guy. I think he is 190. So sometimes he might be easily overpowered by some of your more physically imposing, like there really aren't many DK Metcalfs, but maybe your AJ Browns and things like that. He might struggle with those guys in particular. And he didn't really have a ton of production in terms of interceptions. So there's a question about, like, can this guy play make? Right. So those are concerns. I think the biggest concern for me is always going to be tackling. But I think the other things are not too concerning for me. I think overall as a prospect, I still like the player. I think I still like the value where they got him. Because he could have been, some people thought he may be day 2. So it was debatable, but good value, good player. I see the thought process to where they're going, even if it's not what I would have done. I can follow the thought process and respect that. So yeah, I'll wait for you to give your thoughts before I give my grade.
So first thing I see is sub 4.40 at starting corner in the SEC. And that's a good place to start, right?
Yeah.
He's super athletic, and I think he's teachable and moldable because he's pretty raw still from a technique standpoint, and I think that's something that Coach MacDonald is looking for, right? He wants to mold this defense and build this defense in his vision. So I'll start with that, right? That's the baseline. Sub 4.40, SEC starting corner. Press corner, super excited about. I love the pick. And I hear you with the safety concern. But here's what I'll say. I was thinking about this after you had tweeted that out. So for one, I think that in the modern day NFL, for me, or present day NFL, better way to put it, you just accumulate guys that can cover. And you figure out where those guys are going to play later, right? So and you're also usually only playing with, how do I put this? It's not as traditional as it was when you had like the in the box safety, when you had the 8-man fronts, and then you had the free safety, the Earl Thomas in the back. There's no more. Cam Chancellors don't exist anymore, right? That's not really a position in the NFL. In today's game. And so I would just say, especially in a division where now you have Maserati Marv in Arizona, whether you want to admit it or not, Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be nasty, right? Yeah, it is. And that offense is going to be cooking. Mm-hmm. You still have a 49er team with Ayuk, Samuel, and they drafted the white dude out of Florida, right? And they'll probably they may trade one of those 3, but the point is they have a good passing game. Right. You've got McVay and his passing game still, right? Which he's going to roll with. You've got Nakua and Kupp. So the Seahawks are going to need defensive backs. And we saw what happened when, they were starting Trey Brown, or they were starting, we were talking about Michael Jackson or Trey Brown, and it was a weakness. And so to me, you need someone to be able to step in and be talented and be able to hold it down if one guy gets hurt. You also need as many talented corners as you can accumulate in this division. And so it made sense to me. I worry less about the ability to fill a safety room than I would the ability to fill the corner spots, right? I'd rather have more corners and less safeties than more safeties and less corners. Yeah. And I think Pritchett is talented enough with the speed and the athleticism where it makes sense to me. I do think the second corner they picked out at Auburn was a bit of a luxury pick. Maybe they see one of those guys as a safety. Maybe they see, someone already on the roster potentially playing safety. The one other thing I will add with seeing them pick as many corners as they did, and I think you alluded to this, is I'm assuming that they are prioritizing being able to keep Spoon in the slot. and have him play in the slot against 3 wide receiver sets often. And so in that case, you're going to have to find an effective outside corner or perimeter corner. And I think that's part of why they picked Pritchett and later on his opposite corner at Auburn, DJ James. I like the pick. I don't love it. I think they could have gone in different directions, but I gave it a B.
Yeah, I think I want to go B- with it because I do understand the pick. I still struggle because they still have Michael Jackson. They still have Artie Burns on this roster.
Man, you and that Artie Burns, man, I swear.
I'm just saying they already have, your starting corners, and you still have, Mike Jackson, who we know is a good backup. They already have Trey Brown, who we know is a good backup. They already have Artie Burns, who we know is a good backup. Then we're throwing in there Nehemiah Pritchard, and then, like I said, we'll talk about it later, but they got another cornerback as well. I really feel like, as valuable as it is, completely agree with you. I think this probably is my main beef more than anything else with Pritchett is he seems like an average man's Tariq Woolen. He's not nearly as athletically freaky, right? But struggles with tackling, right? Mm-hmm. He's got the length, pass breakups. Now Tariq had much more production in college, as I said, like an average, maybe not a poor man's, but I just don't see that big of a gap between him and Tariq Woolen. I mean, I would say this Tariq Woolen insurance in case he never figures out the tackling thing, but this guy has the same problem. So I'm not really sure, and I guess I'm concerned because if they can't coach, and it's a different coach, but if they can't coach up Tariq Woolen, then I don't feel that confident they can coach up this guy in regards to that either. So I just don't get how he would be insurance, I suppose, for Tariq Woolen in that way.
I think coaches believe that they can teach players with talent how to tackle and how to play with more attitude, more nastiness, right? Like you want everyone to come in with Spoon's attitude, but I think coaches believe they can motivate players, right? Yeah. And whether it's their ego or it's the truth or whatever it is. And so a player I'd rather have a player come in with traits, right? With real deal physical traits that I can coach and teach and mold than the opposite, where if he's coming in playing corner, running a 4.65, you already know he's not going to work out. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I like the pick. Like I said, could they have gone elsewhere? Could they have gone safety? Could they have gone inside linebacker? Sure. But they clearly didn't like the options at those positions enough to pass on a player like Pritchett here.
Yeah, I hope that was a strategy. I hope that was a thought process. I'm not necessarily. I find it hard to believe that he was their best player on the board, unless their board is just so dramatically different than and it could be just dramatically different.
I think it is.
If it's that dramatically different, I'm a little concerned about the thought process. But anyway, I will just say this, my final thought on the Pritchett thing. Do agree with most of what you said, and they are valid points. I will say if you compare it to the conversation we just had about how the tight end room complements each other so well and how it fits together so well, I think that you lost that with the DB room. I really don't think that it's a lot of redundancy. I think it's a lot of just redundancy, I'll say. And it's missing, I think, certain elements. Now, Devin Witherspoon makes up for a lot. But, you don't have depth that I think matches what Witherspoon brings, even just from the guy who isn't nearly as elite, but he doesn't struggle to tackle. Because I feel like half of the cornerback room over half of the cornerback room now struggles to tackle. And I'm just trying to figure out who's going to fix that. I know I'm harping on a dead horse, but we all watched last season. So if our goal is to improve in any sort of way, and it might be is a defensive coach. So I think, that's a fair thing to watch out for when evaluating him, even as his first year as a coach. Fundamentals, I think, should improve. Mm-hmm. But anyway, overall, still more high than low on the pick. Those are my concerns, but they're not anything earth-shadowing. And I do agree that we're getting to the point in the draft here, 5th round, where you're just taking flyers on guys. You're just seeing, what you like. And if it pans out, great. But if not, then you're not losing anything major. So I'm good with that. Okay. Then the Seahawks drafted so it's pick 179. There is confusion about if this young man is a tackle or a guard. I've seen both. I think people think he projects as a guard, so a lot of places have him down as guard, but Seahawks listed him as a tackle. Other places has since listed him as a tackle, but
you're not gonna pronounce his name. I think it's
Great. We'll go with that. We're gonna absolutely go with that. Great job. Great job.
I tried.
It's hard for me to evaluate this in a little bit because of the confusion on I'm not sure where he projects. Is this offensive tackle depth? A lot of people said that he was better as a guard. His better performances were guard, but that he did play tackle. Are they playing somebody who's not, that he's not optimal? Are they going to put him in tackle? That's not where he's best. I don't know if I love that. If they're putting him at guard, I love the depth, but then you kind of get crowded in the guard room. So it's a little weird for me.
I think they picked him because I think he's probably a swing, and I think that Michael Jarrell is a swing too. So my guess is they saw things in Laumea that they liked, right? You see, everything I read said he's just nasty as heck,
right?
And a mauler and mean and But I've seen, because I watch a lot of Pac-12 football, that you want him in the run game, especially. You want that run behind that dude. And so the Hawks, if I'm running the Hawks, I'm just going to say, all right, I know this dude is a great run blocker. We want to run the ball. I love his attitude. I love his nastiness. There's some athleticism there. Let's get him in camp. Let's get him in the organization, and we'll figure out if he's a tackle or a guard. And I bet you they're betting that one of these two shakes out as an okay tackle, enough to back up that tackle. And then the other one, you'll be able to really implement more as a guard, right? I think that Laumea is a guard. Everything I saw is if he gets off balance when he's on the outside, he can get beat with speed. There's a lot of things that he can't deal with as well on the outside. But if he's got that kind of explosion and he's a run blocker, man, give him to me. Let's put him at guard and let him roll. And then I think it's smart to have more bites at the apple on at guard, because we don't know that Bradford's a starting guard, right? We don't know that Bradford has the ability or the talent to be a legitimate starting offensive guard in the NFL. We know that there's talent. We know that he's big, but we don't know if that's you can win a Super Bowl with him starting on your offensive line. We don't know that yet. And so to bring in a couple of offensive linemen like this and see what you have, I think was super smart. I love the fact that they're taking shots at the offensive line. I would much rather see this than, a kick returner or, like Chicago picked a punter in the fourth round. That kind of thing. Give me the big Samoan dude that's going to come in and create some holes for the running backs. I loved it. I was happy with the pick. I think it was a good pick. I think that he, to me, from what I saw, was slept on a little bit. But I do hope that he ends up settling in at guard, because I don't think he's a tackle.
I gave it a B on the philosophy alone, even if I'm not sold on the player themselves, just from what I read from the scouting reports. I will say I love their point about Bradford not knowing if he is a starting quality. And I love that this means that there's going to be plenty of competition, which I agree with you. There hasn't even been competition really on those interior positions. It's really just sort of given to guys and then that's it. And so 100% I'm with you. They need at least the competition. I'm not sure. Well, I think of these picks, I think it's a good value to go ahead and just get depth. They also need depth, because that's been a real problem as well. The guys can't stay healthy, and they've just had the bottom fall out. I felt like they had the worst depth in the league from an offensive line perspective. And I said that in the preseason, just looking at the depth chart, it was a concern. But I will say again, similar to the cornerback room, I just sense a little bit of redundancy. All of these guys are run graders. Love that. But I just want to make sure we can keep Geno upright. I do know they're mobile. Maybe that makes up for it. But it scares me a little bit that I'm not seeing a ton of like great pass pro and these counter points.
You don't need pass pro. You just need to run the ball.
No, you need pass pro, man.
You know how I feel about
the
that.
league rules told you that or not, but apparently it's about to be legal to run a football in 3 years.
Yeah, you saw
the way the league is going, man.
You saw who won the national championship in college football this year, right?
I assure you that we will need to throw the ball. That's predictable.
Yes, I'm joking. I agree. But I do think that, especially with Coach MacDonald and where he's coming from, his pedigree, you're going to see them prioritize running the ball, and you're going to see them prioritize on the offensive line having really good run blockers. I think that is going to be an emphasis of this regime, and it's going to look a little bit different than what we've seen.
I hope it's a best of both, because I do feel like we've seen something similar where, especially back in the Tom Cable days, where we had all these people movers, right? Road graders. Now, they weren't as mobile, and so that ultimately ended up being the death knell that these guys couldn't move. But that pass protection really couldn't, like, we couldn't have an elite offensive line because pass protection was just holding them back to such an extent. I hope that the mobility will provide a little bit more balance in that regard. I don't mind being run heavy as long as we are at least adequate at pass pro. If they can be adequate still at pass pro, then I'm all for it. But I just don't want to have a huge weakness. And I think, like I said, I think the agility will help. And I know Charles Cross is good at pass pro. Abe Lucas, well, he's a run grader too, but also he's pretty good at pass pro. I think he's really grown in that, and hopefully if he can stay healthy, he'll grow even more in that regard. So Oluwatimi, I think, is also really good in that regard. So maybe there is.
I think they'll be okay. I think they're going to be okay from a pass protection standpoint. It's not the Russell Wilson days of let's get primarily run blockers and let Wilson run for his life because we know he can.
Right.
That's literally what they did.
That's my fear.
We don't care about pass pro because we're going to let him run for his life and make something happen. And that wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't smart, in my opinion. Right. I don't think that's what they're doing. But I do think they're going to prioritize the run blocking more than most other teams do.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's what the 49ers do, and so that hasn't failed them yet. I think anything else in terms of weaknesses with this player, hand placement, things like that, I think was the biggest thing that I saw in terms of a knock against him. I really feel like the coaches can fix that. Yeah, pass pro obviously is not a strength. He has some issues and some things to work on with that. Figured that.
But he was doing it as a right tackle, and if they move him into guard, it's going to look a lot different, right? I think he was exposed out there on an island.
That's true.
Because he didn't have, he was getting beat with speed. You said hand placement, you were right. He would get off balance with that stuff. And at guard, it's just a different ball game. You just got to be stout, and I think he is able to do that for sure.
Yep, absolutely. So your official grade is what?
I gave it a B. I probably would be closer to a B plus because I like the pick. I don't really have any negatives with the pick. I think it's, like I said before, by this time, you're kind of looking for traits and hoping you can coach it up. I'm not going to give it an A because I don't think he's a outright, starter. I can't say that because I think he's got work to do, but I gave it a B.
Yeah, I think I give it a B as well. Based on the philosophy, still, like I said, not as high on the player itself, but high on building in the trenches. And so it's hard for me to give it too low of a grade because I've been pushing to build in the trenches, and I'm just happy to do that alone, even if the guys that they're doing it with don't all pan out. Right. I appreciate the approach.
Right.
It's refreshing. Okay. With pick 192, the Seattle Seahawks selected cornerback DJ James out of Auburn also. I hate it. I tweeted out.
Tell us how you really feel.
I tweeted out, man. As soon as they called that, man, I hate it. I know that it's a throwaway pick. I mean, it's a 6th rounder. I understand that at that point you're just throwing stones at the wall and see if it sticks. but I just feel like any other position at that point, I think would have been fine. I'm over the cornerback experiment. I mean, the room is so packed. I think they've already got a fair amount of talent. Like you said, it is a very much so a luxury pick. And I don't even get I can't find a train of logic, really, truly. I can't.
Let me offer one. Okay.
Okay.
So one, he's not as athletic as Pritchett is, but some people thought he was going to go higher than Pritchett originally. But here's the logic that I will offer you. When I look at the names in that cornerback room, and I'm thinking who's actually talented, who do I actually think should be a part of an above average secondary? Who do I think, needs to continue to be on this team with a new coach and a new philosophy? I can name Spoon, Enrique, Julian Love, Rayshawn Jenkins.
Really?
Yeah, I like Jenkins. I think he's a professional. I think he's a good safety. I don't think he's great. But I think he is serviceable and he won't make mistakes. To me, that position, more if you're not going to have a dynamic Earl Thomas type rangy safety, give me someone who's not going to make mistakes, who's going to be solid with his assignments, is going to do his job, is going to tackle well, is going to be able to cover, guys on the inside, tight ends, whatnot, and do your job, right? They're not dynamic. Julian Love and Rayshawn Jenkins are dynamic. Kayvon Wallace isn't dynamic, but they're going to do the job, right? But here's what I was getting to. What I'm getting to is Kobe Bryant gets converted because he can't play corner. Mm-hmm. Artie Burns is a former first-round pick, but there's a reason why he's bounced around to like 4 different teams, right? Michael Jackson is okay at times, but got torched when he was alone on the outside when we had injuries. Trey Brown is never healthy. And Trey Brown has some talent, but we don't know that Trey Brown's really a starter in the NFL on a good team. So they're names that we know. They're players that we've gotten comfortable with. They're players that we know have been a part of the secondary for the last couple of years, but that don't mean they're worth anything. That's the way I see it is just because we know them and just because they're on the roster and just because they're in the room doesn't mean you're not looking for their replacement, right? It's like at a job where you got someone who's been in position for a while and you just get used to them being there. Hey, what's up, Sam? What's going on, right? You walk in the door, you see them every day. And they do like a below average job, but you just get used to them being there. When a progressive company or you're trying to move forward and get better at what you do, you're looking for someone who's going to come in and be talented and someone who's going to come in and push and drive and have goals. And I think with the corners that they selected, that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, all right, we already know what we got in Burns and Michael Jackson and all them. They all right. We don't want them to play that much. But let's see if we can bring in these SEC corners who have athleticism and have Coach MacDonald, coach them up and teach them and see if we can't upgrade that third corner, that fourth corner, that fifth corner to the point where now we can sustain an injury to Spoon or to Reek because we've got similar athleticism behind them. That's how I see it. And like I said, in today's NFL, you cannot have enough talented cornerbacks. You just can't. That's the way that I would argue. I don't know if I believe what I just said, but that's the argument for drafting those corners.
I hear your logic.
Sure.
I'm not sure if I can 100% get on board with it, mostly because I do feel like it's pretty set. You're not still trying to figure out who your starters are. I think that's pretty clear. I think at this point, you're just looking for better depth, maybe, because Michael Jackson is up and down. I feel like he's the least of them. Well, probably him and Artie Burns are the least of them. Could you upgrade those spots? Maybe, but I also feel like Michael Jackson isn't. I just feel like he's inconsistent, right? So I feel like as long as you're not depending on him, if he's backing you up, I think he's solid. Honestly, I think he looked terrible in the preseason. I don't know if he didn't do anything in the offseason or what. Because he came in looking absolutely terrible. But as when they actually needed him in the regular season down the stretch, he was one of the better guys, to be honest. He was looking better than Tariq Woolen at times. And so I think he's solid depth. I think Trey Brown is solid depth. Granted, he is on the last year of his deal.
I think Jackson is too, right? Is Jackson not in the last year of his deal as well?
He might be too. That's fair. That's fair. But that's projecting ahead a little much, if you ask me. Because you probably, I mean, corners are a position that I feel like went through a drought for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, guys who could not be wide receivers, who were still really good, turned into corners, and they're really good. So now we have this sort of influx almost of the past few years, really elite cornerback talent coming out every year. Mm-hmm. And so they're not like the running back position at all. But I just feel like, did you have to you know what I mean? Did you have to address the position?
Right.
You know, in a year where you still have some time to work through some of that. And I think this is probably my biggest gripe with how deep they went in their cornerback room. Mm-hmm. I feel like Pete Carroll used our corners that we had right. Really, seriously. I feel like they needed to be in man coverage much more often than they were. I don't feel like they were put in a position to succeed. So it's hard to even truly evaluate. I would rather see who the guys who have shown you great things, you know who they are, but can have upside in Mike MacDonald's system. I'd rather see those guys and maybe add one guy, maybe for depth.
I think they have those guys who you can see what they can do in Mike MacDonald's system and see if they can improve. And their names are DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchard.
No, I want to see how these guys, how these corners, how Tariq Woolen, who we know is better at man coverage, but never played it.
Yes.
Trey Brown, who I also feel like is better at man coverage, but
when he's healthy.
When he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not. He had 1 year of being injured. I feel like last year wasn't just he himself was injury riddled. I think it just.
See, I like Trey Brown. I like Trey Brown. I just don't think that I don't want Trey Brown to be anywhere above maybe my fourth or fifth corner, right?
Yeah, I would agree. He's good there.
Michael Jackson gets on my nerves. Artie Burns shouldn't be a Seahawk. Like, I don't know. I bring in the young blood, right? Bring in some athletic dudes out of the SEC and let Mike MacDonald teach them. So for me, I love it. I think both of those guys, especially the Pritchett pick, just because the athleticism is so crazy, but I don't mind it. And the biggest thing, even outside of the cornerback, is they invested so much on defense in this draft, right?
Right.
They went heavy defense, heavy offensive line, right? Let's win in the trenches and let's put this defense together and have a nasty, nasty defense. I don't care what corner, safety, whatever it is. The fact that they came in with remember how we talked about, not to go too tangential here, but we would talk all last year about, like, how do we define this team? Who is this team? We can't tell whether they want to run the ball, whether they want to throw the ball. You know, how do you define the defense? What's the defense trying to do? It is so clear with this draft and what we've heard from Coach MacDonald so far that this vision is so defined. Every detail about what he wants this team to be, he's written it down and he's told everybody already. And so that to me is cool. So you want to pick a whole bunch of corners and you want to have a great secondary and you want to teach them, you do you. I just want this defense to be great, right? And so that's the cool thing to me is I can get behind it. Even if I don't agree with each individual move, I can get behind it because there's a vision and a philosophy in place and they're trying to make it happen. I think that's super cool to me.
Outside of this pick, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I still hate this pick.
I
will say the difference is I think I'm higher on the current cornerback room as constructed than you are. And I think that's really the difference. Like I'm pretty high on it as currently constructed. I feel like Mike MacDonald could take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. If they didn't make a single change, I would be happy with our cornerback room. And you don't necessarily feel that way. So
I love the first two. Give me the first two all day. I think the first two, the most talented tandem.
I like the whole room. I like the whole room. I'll be honest.
You can have your little Kobe. You can have your little Kobe Bryants
he's not in the room. He's in the safety room next door.
I know he is, but I'm just saying, like the little Michael Jacksons and Ushers and whoever else you got in that cornerback room. You can have those guys. I'm good.
I think they're hard depth. For depth, they're cool. Now I would not want them to start. It's 100% agree with you, but everybody got to play a role. You know what I mean? Like everybody can't be a starter.
Yeah, on the bench, that's the role they should play. Or as a free agent, that's the role that they should be playing. Right,
okay.
We got one more.
We got final pick, 6th round pick, Michael Jarrell out of
Finley.
Hang on. I found Ohio, Findlay College in Ohio. He is an offensive tackle who had a great 10-yard split of 1.69. He is a talented blocker, they say. And that's all I got.
Arms, 6'5", 294, small college, obviously. Started 40 games consecutively to end his career. Explosive. They said that his frame's not perfect, so a little bit of short armor, which means he's not playing tackle. He's probably playing guard. Obviously, they see something they can work with him, and that's why same as the kid out of Utah. You know, I think I put those guys in the same category where they're athletic. There's some explosiveness to them. You don't know what position they're going to play yet. Let's get them in camp and see what happens. But anybody's an upgrade over Stone Forsythe and. Who was your boy that they cut from last year that you loved? Jake Curhan?
Oh, yeah.
When they Curhan?
Yeah.
Hey, give me anybody over those guys.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. Just give me somebody different.
Those guys need to be driving trucks or something because they are not NFL players, either of those two.
I 100% agree with you. It's the guy that did a 30 visit on. And I assume that he probably would have been in UDFA, but that they really want to make sure that they get him because they are so serious. They seem to be really serious about competition on the offensive line at both tackle, which they needed because the tackle depth was just as atrocious as the interior depth was. And so I graded an A for what it is. I mean, I know nothing about the player. I literally could not find a scouting report on the guy because he's.
I know I was digging deep on the internet looking for stuff on him.
It was tough. I could find nothing but his like stats and numbers to find no evaluation of the player. Right. The team obviously likes him. He's had a 30 visit. They probably like his personality and what he brings in that regard. Gonna assume he's a physical guy just because it's a thing. Right.
He had like a MySpace page and like a Division II like roster, and that was about it. He didn't have that much.
Yeah, really, he's kind of a ghost to the world. But happy to have him because, like you said, he's better than Jake Curhan. He's better than Stone Forsythe. Is he still on my team? Is he still?
Yeah, Stone Forsythe is still there. Curhan is gone.
Yikes. Oh, why is he still on this roster? I need for Mike Jarrell.
Yes.
It doesn't take
let's go. We gonna become the Michael Jarrell fan club over here. Let's go. Let's do it.
It doesn't take much to overpower Stone Forsythe. You really don't have to do anything but be able to move your feet in any way. Like that's really all it takes to beat this guy. Please get him off my roster.
Do not be a turnstile. That's all you need to do.
I'm gonna go get a Jarrell jersey.
Be clowning. I would love it though. I'll get a Nehemiah Pritchett jersey, and you can get a Jarrell jersey.
Yeah, we're rooting for the underdogs.
Oh man! So, what did you give this draft overall? Like walking away, it's been done for an hour or so. How are you feeling about the draft? Is it what you expected? Are you excited? Did you learn anything about this team that you didn't know beforehand?
All of the above. Definitely learned a lot about the team. Confirmed that they were built through the trenches, and that's what I want. That's how you win in this league. That's how you get to the top. I think it's been proven over and over again. I'm really glad that we're moving in the direction that we should be if you're trying to be a winner. So philosophy wise, I give that. I loved AAA for the first 2 days. Really not as high on day two at all. I would say underwhelmed, not upset, but just maybe underwhelmed with what we have. I'm gonna give it a C though, because I am more of the picks I think are big question marks. I can see 3 years from now, half of these guys not turning out to be, much of anything. I can just, when I look at it from that perspective, how many of these guys 3 years from now can I really see being impactful players potentially on this team? The projection just isn't there. And so for that reason, it's a C. But it was gonna be a C minus. But you made me feel a little bit better by saying you like Jenkins, because I just kind of thought he was a Jag, to be honest, and I still kind of think he's just a Jag. But anyway, I'll take your point about making no mistakes, and that takes a little edge off of my safety concern. Not much though, so it just went up like half a letter grade.
So, a couple things. One, I think it's different if you take into account that the second round pick was traded for Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
Right. And then what was it? A 4 or 5 was traded for Sam Howell.
Hated that.
See, I like Howell. We'll talk about
Howell, but I wanted my third round pick more, just to be honest. If I had to pick, you know what I'm saying? I like Howell.
But if you put those guys, not as a part of the draft, but you take into account the fact that they were down a couple of very good picks and still came away with what they did, I gave them an A minus. And the reason why is, if Murphy is what we think he is, and Haynes can develop into an above average starter on the offensive line, we're not going to remember much else, right? You're just going to remember that you have a potential Pro Bowl 3-tech D tackle and an above average starter at guard, right? And
that's still a bad class.
I get it, but I don't know if teams are thinking that you want the 5th round pick to become a starter, but I don't know. But I don't know what the hit rate is on those guys. So for me, this draft is about Murphy and Haynes. But I also will say that I'm higher on the rest of the draft than you are. The only player that I'm not super high on is Tyrese Knight, and that's just because I don't know enough about him, right? But I look at Barner. Obviously I love Barner. I like Pritchett a lot. I like the fact that he's sub 4.4 and he's got some cover skills in the SEC. Laumea, I watched play at Utah, and you know me, I want to run the ball. The DJ James pick I don't love, but they're trying to fill up that corner room. It's cool. I think they did better than people are giving them credit for. But here's the other thing is, people tend to give higher grades to drafts with more splashy names and players, right? And to me, when I look at this draft, it wasn't splashy. There's a bunch of tackles and tight end and a bunch of like kind of no-name corners. But this is what Mike MacDonald wants. He wants toughness. He wants to build in the trenches. He wants to beat you up. It's the Harbaugh, kind of way of going about things, Jim and John. And I didn't expect this draft to be flashy. I expected it to build with names that I don't necessarily know, and for them to get a bunch of clay that they can work with and coach up and teach. And that's what they did. I gave it an A minus because I didn't give it an A because there's, as you said, there's not a lot of guarantee in that bottom half of the draft. It's a lot of lottery tickets, but those first 2 picks are A+ picks for me, right? And so if those 2 develop as we think they will, to me, this is an A draft because we're not going to remember a lot of the other guys much. And I'm taking into the fact they didn't have those 2 high picks.
Don't you still hear the conversations about D. Eskridge? Yes, we will. Don't you know your fan base? They 100% are still talking about Creed Humphrey.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let one of the other players that they passed on be an all-pro. You will absolutely hear the name, particularly Tyrese Knight, forever. It's not even a question. I think you forgot who you were talking to. Sorry, audience. I think he forgot about your personality, but we hold grudges.
I hope just for entertainment value that Tyrese Knight is a bust, because we're going to be talking about it 3 years from now.
And don't let Cedric Gray become somebody.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that was
that
was interesting because he was such a big name that people knew, and he was available. But
I'll say this: most of the time, they're named for a reason. I will put it out there that more often than not, they have made a name for themselves, and I'm all here for the diamond in the roughs, one or two of them. But when you got like
not all the draft,
half of the draft is unknown factors. That scares me because we got cute and there's a history of bad drafts of dudes who we didn't know and they all turned out to be busts. I'm just saying John doesn't have a great track record of those things working in his favor.
I think he's boom or bust, right? He's had these drafts where, people didn't know Richard Sherman barely, unless you were on the West Coast, and he was a wide receiver most of the time.
That was so long ago.
But I'm just saying though, like even the one with Reek, like people knew Reek because of his 40 time, but there was a lot of criticism about that draft too. So for me, like I think John Schneider is like kind of boom or bust with his drafts. And I like the fact that it's not Pete Carroll in the room influencing now. It's Coach MacDonald. But you're right. He's had some of those no-name drafts and we're like, who is this? And we're still saying, who is this a year into them being on the team because they're not on the team no more.
Exactly.
I feel you on that.
They're driving buses.
This was fun.
It was a long podcast, but it was going to be, we're going over every draft prospect, reacting to them all in once. Some people did break it up day by day, but honestly, I would have done that had the Seahawks had more picks, but to me, it was literally one pick day one, one pick day two. It really wasn't worth it.
Let's just get it done.
All at once. So anyway, Tino, it was great to be back talking ball with you. We're going to find the rhythm here in this off season and get back to creating content for you guys. Really appreciate you guys being patient during the wait. If you unfollowed me over the break, please make sure you follow me. I will be back trying to get more in a rhythm of posting content, tweeting out more regularly. So please do give a follow if you do not already. And Tino, you can tell people they can find you.
Yes. Mariners Cast, Sports Ethos, talking Mariners at minimum 3 days a week. Mariners have started off really slow, but are now in first place in the American League West. As you all know, baseball is my first love. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm starting a new podcast this week in baseball, where it's kind of more of like a baseball roundtable with a couple buddies of mine. We're going to talk about the previous week and the week to come. And I don't know, you just love sports, man. And I'm getting ready for that Michigan football season. And this draft for me with the Seahawks, I think the fact that we have a defined philosophy now and we can kind of roll with that is super fun. So at Ethos Mariners, at Tino Jr. 20, TINOJR20. That's my personal Twitter handle. Come find me. Let's chop it up about sports and have some fun. It's been great.
All right. That's it. That's all the time we have for today. We're out. And as always,
go Hawks.